Somehow, the show that I cared the least about wound up being one of my favorite things Marvel has put out this year. Go figure. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to that channel, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. This finale probably packs the most emotional and satisfying ending of all the Marvel Plus TV shows so far. WandaVision is pretty high up there too, but I think the action in this is a lot better than the action that happens in the finale of WandaVision when you just get the two Harry Potter witches at the top of the sky shooting balls at each other. The emotion's there, the action, this finale is the best and sticks the landing the best of all of them. It's funny because this is a show that starts off very innocently for Kate. Everything's super fun and quirky, and this little plucky 20-year-old something trying to fit in and be best friends with her idol. And it progressively gets more intense as it goes along. You add in the tracksuit mafia, who are violent. They give her they attack her. They give her a pretty good fight, but they don't seem that very menacing. And then it just ratchets up from there. You add in Echo, and you add in Jelena, and then you finish off with the big boy, the big bad boy of them all, Wilson Fisk, played once again menacingly by Vincent D'Onofrio. And so this episode opens with Wilson and Eleanor having a heart to heart. Eleanor clearly has done some work for Wilson and has been a part of the mob and him for some time. Even so, it appears that while I always thought that Eleanor had something to do with the death of her husband, it's clear that Kingpin did, and she was sort of paying for the debts by working for him. And now she, as Wilson says, you've lived off the cow too. But now that he is starting to get involved with Kate, and she wants out, and she threatens and blackmails Kingpin to do so. And we all know in the world of Marvel, the one thing you don't do is you don't threaten or blackmail Wilson Fisk. It is good to see Vincent D'Onofrio back. He is as imposing and as menacing as he always was. He has a delivery and a cadence that makes you hang on every word that he says, but also feels like whatever he's saying is the most terrifying thing that you've ever heard being delivered. Even if he's saying "I love you," you're like, "Nope, don't want that. Don't want any love from you." To that effect, he meets Maya shortly after his conversation with Eleanor, and he just is trying to sort of suss out. We knew that Saz was going to kind of lay the land out and tell Kingpin that yeah, Maya might be onto us, and so he wants to see it firsthand. And they have a sort of a heart to heart. He tells her I love you and all of that stuff, but he knows that when she leaves there, she's aware, and he's lost her. And so he tells them, rain hellfire on everybody that is bringing, it is coming after me. Go get Eleanor, show her how it's done. Anyone that gets in the way of that, and then let's deal with this Maya situation. And that sort of is the impetus of this episode. That is the Kingpin is about to rain terror down on everyone. We return back to Clint and Kate, and they are sort of suiting up. They know it's about to come. They've seen the video. They actually had the entire conversation. We watch it in real time, but they actually have recorded the entire conversation via Jelena, who Clint finds out that's how she got the video. But they suit up, and they suit up and put the outfits they have on from the LARPers, which you get a pretty cool reveal in the middle of the battle for Clint. Kate's fully wearing hers. But you also get them setting up and getting all the trick arrows that they possibly can get. You're seeing some Stark tech, you're seeing some Pym tech, you're seeing everything that they possibly can create, and labeling the arrows so that this battle, they go out with these quivers, they're ready to go, and they have everything marked and fully amped. Because of that, and because of how each arrow does something different, and it becomes one of the most satisfying action sequences, especially for a finale, that I've seen. It is thoroughly entertaining to see them working back to back, sliding down. They make archery look badass, which I have never personally thought or said before. I 100% say it today. And so there's this weird two stories kind of intertwining here. While the tracksuit mafia are are doing everything humanly possible to go after Eleanor at her holiday party, and Clint and Kate are trying to protect her. Jelena is there trying to come after a Clint, and Kate's trying to sort of stop that and protect Clint. Look, I gotta be honest with you. Anytime Jelena and Kate are on screen, I want more of it. I want to inject it into my veins. They are a perfect pairing together. Sort of like this older, wiser sister and this younger, plucky sister who annoys the hell out of her older sister, but you can tell the older sister still respects and kind of has love for her, even though they don't really know each other. Yelena's like, I like her, probably because in a part of it, she reminds her of her. And sort of, she was Kate in the in the Nat Yelena relationship. She was Kate, so she kind of relates to what's happening. But it's cute. The smacking of the hand, the elevator sequence, the whole fight. Even when they are fighting each other, it is still, you can tell that Jelena is pulling things because she actually genuinely likes Kate. So whenever the two of them are on screen together, magic happens. So if there's any way that we can make Florence and Hailee work together as these characters get in the future, sign me up. I want it. I won't go into all the action beats because there's some pretty cool things with the arrows. What the arrows do, what surprise arrows they have. It's fun. But the finale of this episode sort of comes when the action splinters off into three segments. We have Echo and Kaz, or Maya and Kaz. We have Clint and Jelena, and then we have Kate and Kingpin. And those sort of all have their own weight and story and build into them. For me, Echo's probably the least important in this episode. It feels more like a tack on and an afterthought. Not because it's not built in, like it's all been there. It's just out of the three stories that we have, she's the one that I care least about because Jelena, I have more back history for, and I have way more history with Clint, and Kate's just been endearing, and this is her show. But it still doesn't mean that it doesn't work. But she comes in and confronts Kaz, and they have a tit for tat. And basically, Kaz lets her know that you took my spot. Like, I wanted the spot that you had, and you've been in my way the whole time. And she, for his reveal, ends his life. She takes an arrow and a broken arrow and does the end of him. It is sort of an anticlimactic battle. They don't really go into it too much. That is not the main crux of the action, the final boss action sequences. Kate sort of has that on her hands. And you say this about Wilson. He's an equal opportunity ass kicker. He does not care what size you are, what gender you are. He is not going to pull his punches, and he's going to throw you through a damn wall. And Wilson gives Kate the business. And there's a pretty brutal battle that you're like, I don't know if this girl should be here. And he keeps saying to her, you're in over your head. Which is to say that you don't belong in this world. You're a little girl, you don't belong here. But she gets the better of him. She uses her wits and her smarts and a trick that her old mentor showed her and gets out of the situation and defeats Kingpin long enough to get her mom out of there. And her mom is thankful, like, I get to live. But Kate's like, yeah, cool, you get to live. I didn't have you killed or murdered, but you're still going to have to go to jail. And so that's probably going to come to bite her at some point in the future. But it is interesting that she'd rather see her mom still alive, but paying for her crimes, but not dead. And Eleanor's like, you're going to do this to your mom on Christmas? And she's like, well, yeah, that's what heroes do. That's what I'm doing. Sorry. And then the last of the big three final action beats is Clint versus Jelena. And this one's way more emotional. It feels like Clint's pulling his punches because he doesn't really want to go at it with Jelena because he feels partially like she's kind of right. But they sort of have a heart-to-heart. She could end him at any point in time, but she wants questions. She wants answers. And she, for a while there, doesn't want to hear the answers that Clint has. Clint's like, she sacrificed herself for all of us. And she's not wanting to hear that. And one of the things that I've always sort of thought in all of this with the Jelena and Clint situation is that Clint has had way more time with Natasha. There's an entire life that Nat has had with Clint that Jelena did not get to have because they were separated so young. And so it is heartbreaking to see her saying, you know that she was jealous and envious of that relationship that they had, that she didn't get to have that with her. And so when Clint pulls out the whistle that they had together, that's a gut punch. She's even like, well, how do you know that? And he sort of goes into like, your sister talked about you incessantly. And she was very proud that she was able to save you on that plane. The plane that we're speaking about happens in Black Widow at the very beginning. Uh, and it's clear that she has had discussions about Jelena multiple times with Clint, and you can see it just break Jelena. Because Jelena goes into basically, I wish I was there to save her, like she did me. And Clint's like, there's nothing we could have done. Like your sister is better than me, and she got the best of me, and this is just the way that there's nothing we could have done to get out of this. This is just the way that it is, and we have to come to terms with that. And they do. Yelena yields and sort of helps Clint up. They hug and have like a moment to say that they both loved Nat, and then they separate, and Yelena goes away. It is an emotionally packed moment, and sort of gives that that moment of release for both of those characters who've been holding so much anger and grief about Nat to heart. So when the 5-0 arrives, Fisk has disappeared. He is not. His body is not there, and we see him in an alley where Maya meets him, and they are face to face. And he's like, "Yo, we're family. We can talk this through. We can get through this." And Maya pulls out a gun, and then we get a camera pan up, and we hear a gunshot, which we are presuming that she shot Kingpin. There isn't a world where I am believing that Marvel gets Vincent D'Onofrio back and then wipes him off the board. And anytime you do a shot or kill off screen, I don't quite buy it. There are too many variables to this. Echo is getting her own show, which we know that Kingpin probably going to be the main villain for that. We also have a history of comics where they've been borrowing. This has probably been the show that they borrowed the most from comics from. There's a comic run where Maya does shoot Wilson in the eyes, and he has bandages over his eyes. So I think that might be where we're sort of going with this, but they just don't want to show it, and they couldn't get there. Some of that's probably because this show's a little bit more family friendly and family oriented than I think Echo maybe, but I just think they might want to hold that or do some negotiations with Vincent on the side. But I don't think there's a world where we're done seeing Kingpin, considering that we've just gotten spoilers for Spider-Man, but considering we've just gotten Matt Murdock back in this world. I don't see a world where we take Kingpin off to do so. I think we're going to start getting Matt showing up in other Disney Plus shows, probably She-Hulk, since that's a lawyer show. He may be there pretty prominently, and I see that Kingpin going to be around. And then finally, like most people expected, Clint does make it home for Christmas, and that's all he ever wanted. That's what this whole series is about, him getting home for Christmas. And like what I always thought is that he's going to take the strays home with him. So he has both Kate and Lucky with him, and they enjoy a Christmas together because she has no family now, and now she's roughly a part of that family. She sort of have a play on what she's going to call herself, like Lady Hawk or this and that, and it sort of just ends with the title card coming up as Hawkeye. I know some of my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans are probably a little upset, is that there is a reveal that the watch that we've sort of was the impetus for a lot of parts of the show that Clint got back is a watch that has inscribed on the back of it Agent 19, which correlates with Bobby Morse or Mockingbird in the comics, which takes Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. out of canon because there was a Mockingbird unless we're saying the title was passed on, so which still could be the case. But it's a fascinating little nod to comics where Mockingbird and Hawkeye are married in the comics. It sort of keeps that lineage going. But all that said, this show sticks the landing and sticks it hard. I could not stop smiling from ear to ear. It hit all the emotional beats I needed. It hit all the action beats I wanted. The humor was there in moments, but not too much, where sometimes it gets in the way. This felt like the pitch perfect sort of mash of what I needed, and where I did not get, where I felt sort of hollow and emptied and didn't get enough of what I wanted for finale for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where I felt like Loki was building too much towards the future. While I loved it, was building too much for the future. This was the perfect one that sort of blended all of that together. WandaVision, I love that show. I think the finale when it got so big, lost some of the intimacy of the emotion. I think that show works when it's dealing with grief and getting super emotional, and less when it becomes an action pitch. This works on all fronts. And they keep referring to this as a season finale, but nothing has been spoken about yet. They haven't announced a season 2 quite yet. Some of it because I think this is one of the lowest rated shows for whatever reason. Probably like me, I didn't care when I first went in and have been thoroughly surprised. But if nothing else, if we don't get another just Hawkeye proper show with Clint and Kate, at the very least, someone needs to immediately greenlight a Jelena and Kate Bishop show. If that is all that comes out of this and we can get to continue on with those ladies, then I'm a happy man. What did you guys think about the season finale of Hawkeye? You'll leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI, or you can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts, we're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.